All right, welcome back, BroPartisans. So I have been vaguely following the this Joe Rogan Spotify story, mostly because it's like it's it's banter for a lot of YouTubers, right? And I watch a lot of YouTubers, uh, and and I really don't get it, right? Most of it. I know that the left loves to pile on and they love to gatekeep and they love purity tests, right? Um, Now, the thing about Joe Rogan is, and I think I wrote this down in our notes, is the thing I love about it is he doesn't fit in a box. And every ideologue, every political person wants to put Joe Rogan in a box and be like, he's right wing, he's left wing. We want him on our side. We want him on our side. And then there are lefties that are like, we don't want him on our side because he's problematic because he did X, Y, Z, right? And
Well,
the
yeah.
the the reason I think that Joe Rogan is as popular as he is because one, he's not an ideologue. He's not so set in his ways that he looks for things to fit the narrative that he wants, right? So he's not like, well, I am this, and so everything has to be looked at through this lens.
Well,
And most of America is like that,
yeah.
right? So, I mean, we've become more polarized over the last few years, but at the end of the day, most Americans are like, well, yeah, that's a good idea. Well, yeah, that makes sense. You know what I mean? And so he's the type of person that's like, I think you're wrong, but let's look it up. You might be right.
Yeah.
In the middle of his show. You know what I mean? So he's like, I don't think that's right. Let's look it up to be sure. And so I think part of his popularity is his honesty in that
He just doesn't know.
he's not
I don't know.
he doesn't know. And he's okay admitting that he doesn't know and having a conversation. And so one of the things that kind of drives me crazy about this whole thing is like a lot of this stuff is an opportunity for a conversation. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to cancel. You need to engage. You need to engage in conversation. And one of the things that, and I'm kind of going on, I know I'm cutting you off and going on, but one of the things when all of the BLM stuff was happening and the kids are wearing the shirts around school and I can't breathe shirts and the cops in the school were getting mad. This happened in my town, right? And at my school. And so one of the things that I said to the police officers was, this is an opportunity for you to have a conversation. You see the shirt, all you have to say is say, hey, I wanted to ask you about your shirt. Or, and the kid may shut you down, or he may have a conversation with you. And that's really all you can ask for at that point, is have that conversation. Like, instead of getting mad and saying, take off the shirt, you can't wear that. Instead of that, have a conversation, engage. Don't cancel, engage. Anyway, that's how I feel about this whole thing. It's like, if you have issues with Joe Rogan, he's one of the people that's willing to listen. He's willing to talk. I mean, as long as you are famous enough for him, right, or have something interesting to say. Because if you have nothing interesting to say, he's not gonna fuck with you.
Yeah.
But so you have to be interesting enough for him to have a conversation with. But at the same time, he's definitely willing to have that conversation. Anyway, that's kind of my rant, and we can kind of go from there. But I don't know, it gets on my nerves. All of this shit gets on my nerves.
There's a couple of points. So, you mentioned, you started out why he's famous. He was a comedian, right? So he got famous from having his friends on his podcast and just being funny. His shows were hilarious. Like, his old shows are hilarious because they're just making fun of each other the whole time. Right. Or they're talking about fights, right? He's big in the UFC scene, and he's talking about upcoming fights, past fights, and they're just talking about what their interests are, right? Whether it's comedy or UFC. And it's really only been in the last, like, maybe 5 years, 3 to 5 years, he's really started engaging, like, interesting people. He gets, like, the intellectuals on his show. He's had Sam Harris, he's had Jordan Peterson, Elon Musk, Neil deGrasse Tyson, like, all these people across the board, you know, have come on a show. Bernie Sanders, you showed me that clip, that was hilarious. He's had all these people on his show, and he just listens to them, and he just lets them talk for the most part, right? Like, he had Alex Jones on his show, and the crazy things that was coming out of that dude's mouth, like, you could see that Rogan was just like, all right, is this guy for real? Like, but like, he gives him a great assault because he's like, you've shown videos of some of these things happening. You've been proven right for some of these things. Now, I think you're crazy, but like, and he like literally told him that. He's like, now this thing right here that you're saying is off the wall. Like, that's
the
too
alien
much.
shit.
The aliens. No, but he was like, he's like, so who's doing it? And Jones, with a straight face, said, what did he say? Interdimensional psychic vampires. Or something like that. That was his big reveal. That was his big reveal for what's going on, right? Like, the lizard people thing. Like, come on, man. Yeah. Like, people are fully capable of the worst evil imaginable. You don't have to have interdimensional vampires sucking your soul out for people to be evil, right? So anyway, so back to Rogan, right? What started all of this? There were 2 interviews, right?
Yeah.
I think I can't remember the first one, but the one that I watched was the one with Dr. Malone. If you're unfamiliar with Dr. Malone, he's been the guy that's been on Twitter before he got kicked off, talking about, like, hesitancy, research is needed. We can't mandate this stuff. It's not safe yet. We don't know that it's safe. All I'm saying is get the facts, right? That's been his whole position the entire time. And everything that's come out against him has basically been trying to rewrite his medical history, right? He was a research doctor. He spent his whole life researching vaccines. He holds like 17 or 18 patents on vaccines, just in his name, not like in company name, but like his name alone. Dude knows what he's talking about, right? And so when he was coming out and saying like he started the phrase that hit the news cycle of the mass formation hypnosis or psychosis or whatever it was that he said on Rogan's thing, that struck a nerve, right? And so that was when this thing with like Neil Young popped up, which was about the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. Neil Young, who's pushing 80, trying to be relevant again or something. Like, I don't know if he was trying to be relevant or just be like, I don't want to be associated with this platform. Blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't know if he remembers Sweet Home Alabama, but we don't care about Neil Young down here. There's a whole song about that, right? So I don't know. What's really interesting is that Spotify bowed to the pressure. They paid Rogan $179 million for exclusive rights to his podcast, right? Something ridiculous like that. They paid him a boatload of cash for the exclusive rights to publish his podcast, right?
Yeah. That was in 2020.
Yeah, so that was years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now you've got the White House urging Spotify, this is Fascism 101, urging Spotify to take further action. I don't know what's going on here.
I don't either. And
it's weird.
It is weird, and it's I think that pressure comes from everywhere. You know what I mean? Like the, the government's trying to pressure a lot of these companies to do shit like that. But you have to figure out why, right? So why is this the COVID misinformation deal, like, why is that violating freedom of speech, or why is that violating any law, or why do they need to take more action? Because, you know, he did a little video that I watched. Is, you know, it's like real close to his face.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yeah, he like films it from right here,
selfie
off his
thing.
nose. Yeah,
where, you know, he's like, everything that I've questioned has turned out to be a real thing. Almost everything.
Yeah.
You know, you talk about the lab stuff. You talked about.
Yeah, they told us, oh, you couldn't transmit the virus if you had the vaccine. Well, that turned out to be false. Like, they told us this, that turned out to be false. These crazy conspiracy theorists turned out to be right like 12 different times, and you're telling me to not listen to them. Their track record's better than yours. Right.
So it's, I don't know. It's kind of interesting where this is going. And then, of course, they drag up all the old shit that Joe Rogan has said. Apparently, he's used the N-word 20 times in the past. And, you know, yes, it's never okay to say the N-word. However, people learn and people grow. You know what I mean? Like, I guess that's my biggest issue, is like, is no one allowed growth? Like, yeah, so maybe they said something wrong 20 years ago, or maybe they said something wrong 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Whatever it is, you have to allow room for growth. He hasn't said anything like that, at least in 4 or 5 years. You know what I mean? Like, but, and it's just a thing where, like, sometimes people don't know any better. And I know that sounds like ableist or whatever, not ableist, but like it sounds enableist. I don't know what the word is there. Like I'm enabling things.
Mm-hmm.
But there are things that I've said and things that I thought that if social media were around 20 years ago, I'd be so embarrassed. I probably wouldn't have a job in education. You know, I've grown a lot over the years and formed my way of thinking. I've listened to people. I've understood what was wrong. I mean, Kanye West, it took him a minute, but he finally figured out why people were upset about him wearing the MAGA hat. And it took him a minute. He didn't really understand it. Because he was like, no, y'all just want to tell me what to do. And it really wasn't about that. It was about whatever. I don't know what the problem was. But you know what I'm saying? Like he learned and he grew. And so I guess the canceling from, of course, the left, the cancellations that happen all the time from something somebody said 10, 20, 30 years ago, I hate it. Like, I don't understand it. I don't understand what you get out of it. And that's why, motherfuckers, that's why you always lose. That's why the left always loses, is because you have no solidarity. It was 10 years ago. That's why nobody wants to fuck with you ever. No normal people. That's why you'll never win anything. Because no normal people want to fuck with you, because you hold everybody to just some fucking crazy standard, 10 years ago, and don't allow room for growth. Anyway.
Well, the other thing that they and I see this a lot. I see everybody doing it, and it's a left and right, but I see it mostly from the left. Is that anytime someone apologizes, they use that as extra ammunition for more. Right? They can never accept the apology. Right.
That's the other thing. Yes.
They're like, you apologize. We got you now. Like your mind. And so like I think that ties in with this Rogan thing as well, because it's like 70 something episodes have been removed now from Spotify.
110.
Oh, 110 is the latest count?
110 is what I just saw.
So, yeah, like
113. I'm sorry, 113.
Like they're not even about COVID anymore. They're just, hey, you had a guy on here that said some things we don't like. We need this episode removed. Yeah, so that's where you're at. That's where you're at. They're going after Joe now, and
but I'm just telling you, like this is how you lose. This is how you lose voters. Because again, Joe Rogan is viewed by his viewers. It's the largest podcast on the planet, and he is viewed by his viewers as a normal person. And normal people listen to him. You guys are stuck in your fucking ivory towers. You're stuck eternally or terminally online. You don't touch grass. You have no idea what anything is, right? You just live online. Or you live in your academic whatever, or you live in fucking Hollywood, right? And you don't realize how people live, how people exist. Speaking of that, this is completely off. So, they did a study that I saw with some like fancy Warburton University or whatever, where like super duper rich kids go.
Okay.
Future CEOs and whatnot, and they said, what do you think the pay range should be between a CEO and the labor? And they said 7-1. They said, okay, what do you think it is in America? They said 30-1. Do you know what it actually is?
It's like 300-1.
357-1.
Yeah.
But that goes with my completely out of touch with fucking reality concept. It's like you are completely out of touch, and that's why Joe Rogan is who he is and why he's so popular, is because he listens and he talks to people and he has conversations without his preconceived notions or his agenda or whatever. And I think a lot of the problem is that you have with all of this is like, you don't want that. You want to put people in boxes. You want them to think one way or think the other way, and you want them to be this thing. And that's not how people are. I mean, that's not even how I am. And I'm pretty fucking far left, but there are some things that I disagree with. Like, I don't know. I don't know, man.
Like what?
I don't know. I'm
like all this bullshit.
All of this bullshit. All this bullshit.
And
yeah. I'm also like, I'm probably what I guess some people would call a class reductionist. I don't know if you're familiar with what that term means, but basically, like, I think all the problems reduce down to class, like race, gender, sexual orientation, all of that. Problems reduced down to, at the base of everything, is socioeconomic inequality. All of it. All of the issues stem from that issue. So, yeah. So I don't, like, Sure, yeah, all those problems are really difficult, and I understand, but maybe because I'm white, I don't really get it. But at the end of the day, socioeconomic inequality is what drives a lot of the issues that we have. And so, yeah, I don't really agree with we've got to fix all the race stuff first. I think we have to fix the class stuff first, and we have to consolidate all of this stuff. We can't keep looking at each other like we're the enemy. Even left and right wing thinking people, we can't keep looking at each other like they're the enemy, because they're not. Your people are not the enemy to my people. You know what I mean? Like, conservatives are not my enemy. My enemy is the elites, the money class, the bourgeoisie. Like, they're the enemy.
Well, but that goes into the driving force behind the whole uniparty and everything else, and so it's all a function to keep us divided, right?
I know.
Because at the end of the day, here's what I see as like the biggest difference between liberals and conservatives, and how it's like how that split is like kept fractured very hard, right? And so yeah, you have racial issues that are used, right, against both sides, by major media corporations. Project Mockingbird is real. That shit happened, and it's still happening.
I don't know what that is. What's Project Mockingbird?
Project Mockingbird is CIA control or government control of media organizations. They tell you what stories to put out, and that shit, all those documents have been released, right? You can look it up online. Project Mockingbird, it's still ongoing today, and you can see that. So you create the split. You have your ruling class, all those people up in the Senate and Congress, they're all buddies, they're all friends. Cameras turn off and they're shaking each other's hands and having no problems. The cameras go on and they're at each other's throats, making us, very team oriented, right? My wife was just saying the other day, she was sick and coming down the road, and there was an election poster up that was like, vote for so-and-so for a governor, a real Republican. And like, that was it, right? Like, what kind of campaign is that? Like, even as somebody who like votes Republican most of the time, I look at policies and I look at, hey, you're a piece of crap, I'm not going to vote for you. I don't care what party you're in, right? I'm just not going to vote in this particular election if that's the case. But like, what is that saying about that team-oriented thing? And like, how many people are you actually convincing with that? That's the kind of thing that wants somebody who's like the old Trump voter to be like, well, Greg Abbott didn't do what I wanted him to at this point, so he's not a real Republican. Blah, 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 blah. And like I get it. That's a primary campaign, but come on.
I've seen on the social media and stuff that the Republican Party is not going to run on policy for the midterms. They're going to run on culture war, anti-liberals, and that's really about it. There's no policy that they're going to run on. They're going to run on culture war shit. They're going to run on CRT. They're going to run on that. But
that's the same crap the Democrats did in 2020 against Trump, or 2020.
No, they had policy, and then but they lied their ass off on all the policy. At the end of the day, they fucking lied. Yeah. They haven't done any of it. Now the Build Back Better is dead in the water. All the shit that we voted for, the reason you're fucking in office, is dead, and it just went according to plan.
Did you see that screenshot I sent you about the Democratic senator who had a stroke after his latest vaccine shot or booster shot? And so now, I had it on my phone. Hold on. So now the Republicans hold a majority in the Senate because this guy is out for the next like month and a half or however long. Senator Ben Ray Lujan, a Democrat out of New Mexico, suffered a stroke and underwent brain surgery. He is currently hospitalized in Albuquerque.
Jesus Christ.
He is expected to return to the U.S. Senate in 4 to 6 weeks, assuming there are no further medical complications. However, during his absence, the Democrats no longer have a majority in the Senate. This means that until Lujan returns, or Lujan, whatever, L-U-J-A'-N, returns, a united GOP can block any Democrat agenda, and there's nothing they can do about it. So yeah, you talk about dead in the water.
Lujan,
yeah. Dead in the water. So there's not a lot like that's gonna happen. I mean that's deadlocked. All the congressional bills deadlocked. They don't even have enough for their continuing resolution right now, like budget resolution, reconciliation. That's what I'm looking for. They don't have a simple majority with this guy out. So it could be interesting the next few weeks. We were talking about Rogan. We kind of got way off topic here.
I mean, but it all kind of goes.
You know,
together.
one thing I think about Rogan. Let me tie this back in. So you mentioned how everybody tries to put him in a box, right? And you do see that. You see a lot of conservatives try to claim him. You see a lot of liberals try to claim him when he has guests that are like from their side on his show, and then Rogan's agreeing with him. And then they get mad when he's got guests from the other side that Rogan agrees with, right? So like if
the only people though, he doesn't really agree, but he just asks questions.
No, I've seen him in times where he'll go off on for a few minutes, like, "Hey, you're exactly right, and here's what I think about it too," and he does that a lot.
Yeah, but he's steering the conversation most of the time when he does that. The only people that I've ever seen him push back on, where he calls them out, is Barry Weiss. I don't know if you know who that is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know.
Candace Owens and
Sanjay Gupta?
Dave Rubin.
Dude, he shit on Sanjay Gupta.
Sanjay Gupta one.
Oh my god.
Oh, he did? Okay.
Yeah, no, it was bad. Like the CNN doctor who's like, we need to have vaccines and blah 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 blah. Like Joe Rogan pooped on him so much that he had to go back to his network and have 3 different nights airtime and primetime television to try and like say no, what I said on Rogan wasn't right. Like, you know, he kind of cornered me and bullied me into this. Like he had to do recovery things for a week after that podcast because Joe Rogan tore his asshole so bad. This was after Rogan had COVID, and all Rogan was telling him was like, look, do you think that because of the risk, like the extremely low risk to children, that parents, like, do you accept that parents would be more hesitant to have their children vaccinated because the risks from the virus are less than the risks from the vaccine? And that's all. That's what Rogan was saying, and he was like, here's the study, here's the other study. Like, why can't you understand this is how parents feel? Like, I don't get that. And Gupta had no answer for it, and he just floundered for like 20 minutes. It was bad. So yeah, I've seen it. I didn't see the Rubin or Owens interview though. I might have to check those out. They probably got removed. They're probably in the 110 episodes that got pulled anyway.
They're fantastic. And really, like, it was with Candace Owens. It wasn't even difficult. He did the same thing to Barry Weiss, but he just asked one question, and they fell apart. Like it wasn't even like.
Do you remember what the question was, or?
Yeah. Okay. Take it to the other room. No, it had to do with an election or something like that. I know with Barry Weiss, it was during the Democratic primary, and he was saying he liked, you know, the people that he liked in the Democratic primary was Bernie Sanders and the other person that went full right wing. What's her name?
Tulsi.
Yeah,
he liked Tulsi.
He liked Tulsi. And she was like, "Oh no, not Tulsi. She's a blah 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 blah." He was like, "Well, what do you mean?" And she was like, "Uh, he was like, "Well, you called her, this. What does that mean?" And she just done. Like it wasn't even a hard question. Like it was
like I just need you to explain what you just said, and I can't do it.
So innocently, like he was like, I don't. Hold on. What do you said this? What do you mean? And yeah, that was it. That was it. Like, and so she just roasted, done, and I lost all respect for her at that point. Like it was like, oh, you just say shit. Like you have no idea what you're saying. You don't care what the actual facts are. You're just regurgitating the bullshit that you've heard on other apps or whatever, other shows, and so you're just
saying things.
No idea what you're talking about.
Well, she was a darling on the right for like a half a second because she wrote that she got fired or whatever and wrote that op-ed against I think it was the New York Times. Well, she left or whatever. And then everyone was like, "Well, wait a minute. No, she's still a crazy
she's not
hardcore." Lefty.
She's not hardcore anything. She's pro-Israel.
Yeah,
and that's really it. That's really the only thing that she is. She's not a lefty. She's pro-Israel. She's great.
Yeah. Who's the guy you don't like? It's like Glenn Greenwald, right? You don't know what you think about him either.
I think he's part of the establishment also.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So I looked into him and some of the stuff that's going on with him. So he married some dude that's he was part of the he's a senator or some other equivalent in Brazil, but he's part of the Labor Party, like the Socialist Labor Party.
Mm-hmm.
They're inviting foreign oligarchs into the country to build whatever, to build parks or something.
Brazil is doing this.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Well, the guy is championing this, who's supposed to be a member of the Labor Party, the Socialist Labor Party. And he's courting these billionaires from America. And his party is like, bro, what the fuck? And so Glenn Greenwald, of course, goes into attack mode because that's his husband. And he starts attacking this other socialist party member. And he's like, hey, I don't really know what I looked it up and I read this whole thing, but I don't remember what it was. But at the end of the day, they're basically establishment elites that
like Nancy Pelosi.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So they spit a good game when it's election time. When it comes down to it, they want their kicky-backies. I gotcha. Yeah. And it's interesting. Like I don't know. I could see like Bolsonaro pulling something like that. And then pitching it as like, hey, we're getting funding, we're partnering with these people to bring in money, we're going to give you jobs here to build these parks or whatever, right? Because Brazil is still extremely poor as a country. Like the government doesn't have a lot of money. The favelas out of Rio, like those are everybody knows about those. They're like, I get it. They're trying to get outside investment.
But to build parks?
It's probably not the best use of their funds, maybe some factories, maybe some I don't know. That's not like a long-term employment project plan to bring people up, right? Like we're going to build a park. What are you going to do? Knock down half this favela and just run people out?
Yeah.
It's not ideal. I could see, like I said, I could see Bolsonaro pulling some shit like that, but
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like they ain't vote for you for that. Like that's not why you're in office.
Yeah.
Like so. Anyway, I just kind of yeah. I don't like him either. I don't like him. I don't like Tulsi Gabbard anymore either. She's gone full fucking crazy.
Hmm.
Um,
I haven't seen anything from her in like 2 years. So what's been going on with Tulsi?
she I don't know. Just I think she's a bit of a war hawk. She's pushing for all kinds of wars, um, which she was anti-war for a long time.
She was anti. Well, yeah,
Um,
yeah. She was
but
anti-war for a long time.
but now she's not.
Well, there apparently from the latest reports, there were like 9,000 Americans that got stranded over in Afghanistan or something like that from this,
Yeah,
like the pullout or something, and so maybe it's related to that. Like I don't know.
I don't know. Also, I mean I've looked more into Ukraine and and I gotta tell you, at this point, in order to avoid war and World War III, and this is not a partisan thing, this is just what I kind of think. I think Biden is kind of playing it right. Like he's not actively sending troops really.
Hmm.
He's sending weapons and things like that. And I think that's the smart play here, honestly.
Well, I don't. Yeah, I don't think that sending troops would get. It doesn't pass the red face test, right? Like it doesn't. America has a bit of a war fatigue, even though like the people who were pissed off at Biden about Afghanistan weren't pissed off that he pulled troops out. They were pissed off at how it got done.
No, I get it. Yeah.
Because like the people who voted for Trump wanted Trump to bring the troops home. And then he had his Republican buddies, his little warhawk buddies telling him like, no, you can't just pull them out, blah 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 blah. So he did, right? Because he did what he was fucking told a lot of times.
Yeah.
So they weren't mad about that, right? This country does have war fatigue. We're tired of it. Normal people are tired of hearing about American troops overseas. Most people are tired of the rest of the world hating us because of that. We don't see it as our jobs to enforce borders, right? Like I don't see it as our responsibility to defend your land. If anything, the Republicans are like, why are you worried about the Ukrainian border when we got this U.S.-Mexico border right here? Like, have you looked at that lately?
Yeah, but they're not amassing troops with weapons trying to invade.
No, they're just civilian caravans or whatever, But like, I agree with you that the sending weapons is the right move. Sending troops would drag us into a very bloody and bad conflict right away.
Well, or just a longer stalemate. You know what I mean? Like, I think honestly, you've been talking about how no borders have moved and whatever. Honestly, I think the invention of nuclear weapons is really what drives that. You know what I mean? Is the access to nuclear weapons, because it's just mutually assured destruction.
Well, yeah,
And
I mean,
then
during the
also
Cold War, sure.
the other thing though is mutual codependency economically. You know what I mean? Like, if a country is not economically dependent on the other, that's why the U.S. really will never invade China, because both countries are economically dependent. China will never invade U.S. because they're economically dependent upon one another.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, at the end of the day, what Russia is pushing back against is Ukraine becoming economically dependent on the West, where they want them to be economically dependent on them. You know what I mean?
No,
So
that's good. Yeah.
that's really at the end of the day, I think that's what is driving all of this. Because if Ukraine joins NATO and they've already lost Poland, they've already lost so and they formed these trade agreements with these Western countries instead of with Russia. Russia loses power economically.
Mm-hmm.
So I think honestly, I think that's a lot of what's driving it. Is they're saying it's because you're putting your people right up next to us, which NATO is a direct enemy of Russia, but really it's about economics and economic dependency, and they need other countries to be dependent on them in order for them to be relevant economically.
Wow.
So
Ukraine isn't necessarily relevant on the global scale economically yet, right now.
But if they're dependent upon NATO, then we're sending goods, and then they develop. There's oil in Ukraine. You know what I mean? We send more money into Ukraine. They get dependent upon us, money-wise. We get dependent upon goods or oil. Russia's left out in the cold. You know what I mean? So I think that's a lot of what it is, and I think that drives the borders and the territories stability is that global market, that global dependency upon each country as we move down the road.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of truth to that, and that's been the case for centuries, really. Like the economic dependency avoids wars.
Yep.
In the ye olden days, the nobles and the kings and princes would marry each other, and they'd all intermarry, and then they'd all end up weak and defective. But before that, it would avoid wars, because of inbreeding, and they would all be born with like a malformed arm or sickly constitution.
The Habsburg chin.
Yeah. So that was how they avoided war, and so it was a lot of that entanglements that would bring those countries to avoiding wars. And so you're absolutely right that with the onset of really going back to the slave trade, and is the best example I can have, but that triangle that occurred with the East India Trading Company, really since then it's been a major thing to avoiding wars with economic entanglements. And so when you start seeing trade agreements break down, it's a pretty good indication that things are going to come to a head. And you think about in terms of our countries being run by oligarchs and media or corporations, and they've got businesses overseas,
Mm-hmm.
Chinese companies have businesses here. We have businesses over there. And these are very influential and rich people who don't want their assets seized by a foreign government, because that's what would happen.
Correct. Yeah?
Oh.
So, it's all bluster and bullshit.
I think to a point. I think if China was to invade Taiwan or Japan and just decide they wanted it, then all bets are off. Anything could happen. Taiwan, we may not go to war over. Japan, I think we would.
I think we would.
Over Taiwan? It's possible.
A lot of microchips coming out of Taiwan.
Yeah, I know that. I think that's where the only place that's supplying the East Coast or the West Coast right now is.
Yeah.
It's possible.
You
want to talk about a chip shortage?
Yeah. All right, we've come a long way off of our original topic, but
I know I haven't marked on a segue. It's probably just going to be another video, but
okay.
So we stopped talking about Rogan a long time ago.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, it's 10 o'clock, a little after 10.
Yeah.
It's our time to stop recording, and
I just got yelled at for opening cookies for the kids for breakfast, so I've got to go mitigate some damage.
good luck. You can always remind her at least it's not chocolate cake.
It was Oreo cookies, so it was pretty close.
It's funny because I had Oreo breakfast earlier this week.
I'm in trouble.
Well, good luck with that.
Thanks. All right, BroPartisan's out.
Thank you for watching this episode of BroPartisan Hacks with Reese and Rob. We really, really appreciate you watching, tuning in. If you like this video, please hit the like button. Please subscribe to us. We're putting out content as often as we can. Share it with your friends. Get it out there. Get our names out there. Also, hit that bell, tap that bell right there so that you can get updated when we put out a new video. Rob and I are trying to pump these videos out as often as we can. However, we both have day jobs, we have families, so our schedules have to line up so that we can make a new video. Speaking of our day jobs, our opinions and views expressed are our own and in no way represent those of our respective employers. Thank you. Thanks again for watching.